Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. My name is Katherine Stainken, and I'm the Policy Director with Plug in America. And you are here for our third webinar of the day, if you've been joining us from the beginning. And today's, or right now, it's Experience Electric Vehicles in a Virtual Test Drive. So this test drive experience today, this is part of a 6-webinar series. It's all free. We already had 2 earlier today. We talked about cities and counties and their role in shifting to transportation electrification. And then we just completed the 101 on electric vehicles in Minnesota. And then on Thursday, we're doing 2 webinars there, how Minnesota can lead on transportation electrification in 2021. And that's more a legislative focus. And then we'll be talking about economic development opportunities for Minnesota as well from the transportation electrification sector. And then on Friday, we've got a jam-packed 2 hours agenda there. This webinar focusing on expanding charging within Minnesota's fleets, workplaces, multi-unit dwellings, and public locations. So that should be a really informative webinar as well. We encourage you to join. These are some of the partners that we have partnered with. So I won't go through each of them, but you can see there, and a big thanks to all of the partners here for making this a big success. We've had great turnout so far for the registration. And here are even more of our partners. And again, just thank you to everyone who has gotten the word out and who was participating and is a speaker, and then just supporting us through this process. And if you wanted to register for any of those 3 remaining webinars, you can go to the driveelectricminnesota.org webpage there, or it's also on the Plug in America website. Same thing with any of the recordings and the presentations. They'll be available at those websites there after, probably for sure by the weekend. If not, the 3 today will be posted later today. So just really briefly on Plug in America, in case you haven't heard of us, we are the voice of the EV consumer in Minnesota and also nationwide. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that was founded in 2008. And actually we got our start a little bit sooner than that. If you've ever seen the movie Who Killed the Electric Car or The Revenge of the Electric Car, I know that these are big blockbuster hits there, but I really encourage you all to watch them. That's how we got our start. It was a group of passionate EV drivers that loved their cars, and they were really upset when the manufacturers recalled those cars due to a regulation at the time. So they all got together and then they formed the beginnings of Plug in America. We do 2 core areas, policy and advocacy, and then education and outreach. And so today's virtual ride and drive is an example of one of those education and outreach activities that we do. And we can do this for your community, we can do it for your workplace, your business, whatever the case might be. We are happy to work with you and set up this kind of a virtual experience. And someday when we get back to doing things in person, we'd love to be working with you all and doing these ride and drives in person. So today we've got Michael, who is going to be showing us a test drive in a Chevy Bolt with a B. And then we've got Brian, who couldn't make it today, but he filmed in advance and he was showing us the Model Y experience. And then we've got Lisa, who is with the Twin Cities Clean Cities Coalition and also with the American Lung Association. And then she will be showing us her vehicle as well. So we're going to run through Michael's video and then Brian's video and then Lisa's. And I will turn it to my colleague Laura right now, who will start our first video.
Hello, I'm Michael Bearfoot, and this is my 2020 Chevy Bolt. The car drives very, very quietly. You can probably notice that you're not hearing too much road noise right now. There's obviously no engine noise because there's no engine. And the acceleration is the most fun part of it, for me anyway. So yeah, I would say that the biggest characteristics are smooth, fast, and quiet. That's the characteristics I would go with. I've always been ecologically minded, and this has culminated in me getting an electric car, my first one in 2015, and that was a BMW i3, and I had another one in 2017, and now I have my Chevy Bolt. And so that the biggest driving factor for me was the environment, but a large driving factor for lots of other people is cost, and that's one of the ways that we managed to get new cars or leases, was comparing the cost of the car to what we were paying before. So when you factor in not paying for gas and not paying for maintenance, it becomes, you know, either the same or cheaper to have an electric car, which has a little bit, can have a little bit of a higher entry point than a regular car. What I like about the EV, I would say the biggest thing for me is not having to buy gas. And then the next biggest thing is the fast acceleration. I get, you know, it's very exciting to go, not necessarily to go fast, but to accelerate fast. I used to, when people would ask me what range I get, I would always have to clarify what range I get versus what range my wife gets, because I drive the car a lot harder than she does. But it's just so much fun. It's also very nice to like when you turn in for the night, you plug in your cell phone, you get it in the morning, it's full. It's also nice to have that on your car. You plug in your car when you get home at the end of the day, and then in the morning when you go out for your day, it's ready to go. So that's a nice aspect. So aspects of driving that are specific to Minnesota, I think the first things that come to mind are winter driving. Your range is going to go down probably, I would guess, about 20% on our Bolt. In the summer we get higher than the EPA rating. We get about 70. It's rated for 259, and in the winter we get about 230 to 240. So your range is going to drop. A lot of that comes from the heater, and it comes from heating the batteries. You can help with the heating the batteries. If you know you leave at the same time every day, you can actually program your car to warm up the batteries beforehand off of house power instead of off of battery power. That's one way that you can increase your range in the winter. But with 230 miles, most people won't have an issue with range in the winter. Another aspect I think unique to, well, not necessarily unique to Minnesota, but definitely something Minnesota is doing is with the VW settlement from that whole lawsuit. Minnesota's been using some of that money for building up infrastructure. So they're building a corridor up, for instance, 94, going up to North Dakota. Pretty soon that'll all be electrified. They're continuing up from there. And then I would think the last thing specific to Minnesota definitely is Minnesota's exploring the Clean Cars initiative, where they would basically adopt California standards for clean cars, which would be great for consumers because then you would have more choices. For instance, when we were buying our car in the early part of this year, we had essentially two choices with our price range. And if the Clean Cars initiative were a thing, we would probably have 6 to 8 choices, because car manufacturers would be required to have certain cars available for sale in Minnesota. And that is a win-win for everybody. It's going to get more people into EVs and lets people have a choice. All that being said, I'm happy with what we ended up with, but it would have been nice to have more choices. And another thing about winter driving is electric cars, almost all of them use the skateboard model that was popularized by Tesla, where the batteries are at the bottom with the motor in either the back or the front, and that has an effect of lowering the center of gravity quite low, which makes it a lot stabler in winter driving, and they're quite heavy too, which also gives them extra traction. You don't have to throw a bunch of sand or kitty litter in the back to weigh down the car, because it's a pretty heavy car to begin with. And yeah, thank you for riding along in my 2020 Chevy Bolt.
Cool, awesome. Thank you, Michael. That's got to be weird to watch yourself as well. Okay, so everybody, that was the Chevy Bolt with a B, and now we're going to transition to Brian, the Tesla Model Y, and then Lisa's. But then we'll have time at the end for some Q&A if you've got a question for Michael. So here is the Model Y.
Hello, and welcome to this Plug-in America virtual ride and drive. I'm Brian Anderson, and this is the 2020 Tesla Model Y. The Model Y is Tesla's fourth ground-up electric vehicle design, following the Model S, Model X, Model 3, and Model Y. The Model Y shares a lot of its design with the Model 3, which was Tesla's first mainstream high-volume vehicle. Unlike the Model 3, which is a sedan, the Model Y is an SUV, or tall wagon, body shape. The Tesla Model Y, as well as the Model 3, have a unique key system. Instead of a key fob or a hard key, they use this key card. So this is a credit card sized key. It's an RFID or smart card. And the way you use that is you come over to the B pillar here, just behind the front door, and just hold it up against the car like that. Now, it wasn't locked before, so nothing happened, but this is the key and how you unlock it. When you have the car unlocked and you want to drive it, then you place the key on the console just behind the cup holder, and that enables driving. But I don't use this key very much, and the reason is that the other key is my phone. And having the app installed, you can set up a phone as a key, and it uses Bluetooth to communicate with the car and unlock the car that way. So it's like other cars with fobs, where you just walk up to the car and the car sees that you're there, unlocks the car, and you can begin driving just with the phone in your pocket. So that's how the Tesla key works. And here is my charging setup. So here's the Tesla charger. This is called the mobile charger, and it comes with every Tesla. So you can also buy a wall mount charger that's quite sleek and beautiful. It charges a little bit faster than this, but I find that just hanging the mobile charger on the wall here is all I need. I just need to remember when I go on a road trip to pack this up, and there's a little bag that Tesla provides that you can put that in. This is the electrical service plug-in, so you can see that's what's called a NEMA 1450 plug, otherwise known as an electric range plug. It's a very standard size, can be bought at any hardware store. I installed these myself, but of course, unless you're good at that sort of thing, you'd want to hire an electrician. And I've heard people say that an electrician will do an installation like this for a few $100s. So I have a fairly short run, and it was fairly easy to do, so I did it myself. But let's see how plugging in works. So I plug the charger back in where it normally sits. I also have this wall mount for the car end of the charger, and just have the extra draped around it. It's got a 25-foot cord, which is more than enough for what I need. And I wanted to show you the other way to open the charge port. So the charge port is here. There's a little button on the Tesla charger. You press that, and it opens the charge port. And there you go. The Model 3 and Model Y are known for their minimalist design aesthetic, as well as this wonderful panoramic glass roof. In the Model Y, it extends from the windshield all the way back to the rear hatch. This model has the white interior. The only other option is black. And that includes this white dash panel, but as you can see, there is no instrument panel behind the steering wheel, just this large 15-inch diagonal touchscreen. Here's the back space. This is an aftermarket mat, and there's plenty of storage, including underneath a very deep storage space there, and another shallower space behind the rear seats. As soon as you unlock the Model Y, the center console screen indicates it's ready to go. To start driving, you simply put your foot on the brake, and in this case the steering wheel moves into my driving profile position, and then you press down on the drive lever. This indicates that you're in drive and you're ready to go. All right, let's take a test drive. All EVs are incredibly quiet. There's no engine noise at any speed, and so you just get what remains, tire noise and wind noise, if you get going fast enough. You notice on the screen here that this display has changed from the park, neutral, drive, etc. into the speed limit, or the speed that we're traveling. We've got a little construction here in my neighborhood, and you can see, hopefully, that it recognizes the traffic cones here, and so this display is showing what the autopilot is actually seeing or perceiving, sensing. These curved lines show the ultrasonic sensors, which are the short-range sensors that tell the car what's up close. And there are 8 cameras around the car, 3 here behind the mirror, 4 on the sides, 2 looking backward, 2 looking forward, and 1 in the back. You can see all the cones, and it really picks up every cone. It knows where they're at. Here's an oncoming car. You can see that rendered in the display, and probably also saw it go by in the camera. So there's really a lot of visibility that the car has, and that's how it does autopilot. It's a vision-based system and an ultrasonic-based system at short ranges, and that allows Tesla to enable a number of emergency features like automated emergency braking, keeping your car in the lane, and things of that sort. So I think that's all we have on the Tesla Model Y. Hope you enjoyed it.
Awesome. That was cool. I hadn't seen that myself, so that was neat to watch. Okay, now we've got one more video, Lisa's, and then Lisa's going to do a short 3 slides for us too, and then we will open it up to some Q&A.
Hi, I'm Lisa Thurstin, and I am here in St. Paul, Minnesota to showcase my electric vehicle. I have a Kia Niro plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, 2019. So we got this car in January of 2019 when our other car unexpectedly died. We have 2 people in our household and just 1 vehicle, so we really wanted a vehicle that could get us around, take us up to the Boundary Waters and to my family in Wisconsin. My husband is over 6 feet tall, so that also limited us on what we wanted, and we needed to be able to carry a canoe and kayak and so forth. Here's where I do 90% of my charging at home in my garage. We have a simple cord, and then the indicator light goes on. In South Minneapolis, doing some errands and just charging up. There you go, you can hear the click, and the light will go on in a moment. It's as easy as that. I'm here in Hudson, Wisconsin, showcasing the new DC fast charger provided by Zeph Energy, as well as the level 2 charger over here. We're located on I-94, the interstate that goes from Michigan to Montana. This project was part of a U.S. Department of Energy project where we were installing 12 DC fast chargers along the corridor.
Okay, awesome. And now I'm going to share my screen again, and then Lisa will go just briefly through your slides there. Here we go. And now let me just go to view, present. Okay, Lisa, it's all you.
All right, thanks. Sorry, I guess I like doing slides more than being on video here, but so as Katherine mentioned, I work for the American Lung Association, and when I was getting this next vehicle, I really wanted to walk the talk. So we purchased it in January 2019, and it was an emergency purchase. Our car unexpectedly died. And currently it has 36,000 miles in the 2 years. We drive a lot of miles with our car since we only have one car in our household before COVID. So I do, as I said in the video, I do 90% of my charging in the garage with level 1 plug-in. And we were lucky that the garage was already set up to handle the level 1 charging, so we didn't have to make any modifications on that. The battery size is 8.9 kilowatts, and as you can see, it gets 26 electric miles and then 46 miles per gallon on gasoline. When I drive, again, when my husband drives, a little bit different story. And it's not the fastest on all the cool EVs for 0 to 60, but it manages the Duluth Hills and long car rides throughout Minnesota and Wisconsin just great. I'm not very tech savvy, and my husband is even less so. So we use the Kia app pretty minimally that comes with the vehicle. And our car is the basic trim. So if anyone's looking at this Kia Niro PHEV, I love the car, but I would definitely recommend an upgrade on the trim so you'd have heated seats and a heated steering wheel. And whenever we travel, we just bring our cord with, as Michael said as well. And yeah, and it's real simple. Next slide. So what we've learned so far is that every adventure takes a little bit of planning, and our charging in the car is with the mapping, like you saw with Brian with his Tesla, is our system is much more simple, and it isn't the greatest. Again, it only lists an address, and it doesn't say the name of the public site. So we utilize other apps such as ChargePoint or local apps or the Alternative Fuel Data Center or PlugShare. So we typically check for charging before we head out to new places where we haven't been before, and have discovered the value of RSVPing for a charging site. You know, you see one at a ramp in downtown Minneapolis, and one time we got there and it wasn't available when we got there, but if we RSVP for it, it's ready. So that's a great program we've learned through the app system. In the 2 years we've had the car, we've only used one charging program, and we keep $10 on the account, and it just refills automatically. So it's real simple. In the last segment of the video along the I-94 corridor, there was the Clipper Creek and then the bigger DC fast charging. And so with those, you know, they're free, so you don't need an app or a program for those. And then we've learned, people like to ask us questions all the time. So we've learned to keep the EV owners cards with us all the time, as well as the EV info list to hand out. And talking about the vehicle always leads to more sales, we've discovered. So 3 of my friends have converted so far, and it's a lot of fun. And then this last slide here, you can switch slides, is just a quick overview of some of my adventures. Like I said, we do kayaking and stand-up paddleboard canoes. We've hauled concrete in here. Again, whenever we're charging at public sites, someone usually walks up to us, and so we explain our story a little bit. And it's a great vehicle, so thanks for allowing me to share my story.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you to Michael and to Brian and to Lisa. And now I think we have some time for Q&A if there's anything that was popping up. Let's see. Okay, Christopher raised his hand now. Let's see. Oh, there's a question here already. How long does it take to charge the Kia?
Yeah, so again, as Yuka says, 10 seconds, because we just plug it in at the night and get out, come back in the morning. But when we're with level 2 charging, it takes 2 hours to get 26 electric miles.
Okay, and what's the most surprising part of being a new EV owner? Or, well, Michael, you're a longtime EV owner, but what was the most surprising part when you first became an EV owner?
I don't know about surprising, but I would say that it was kind of interesting how quick you lose touch with how much gas prices are.
Yep. And
so what about you?
Since we have a PHEV, we do still use fuel, and we use E15, which is typically a little bit cheaper than regular unleaded, so that's a nice bonus. But probably the most surprising part for me is, again, just how quiet it is, and it's a great drive.
Okay,
I will say,
one
thing that surprised me was how much fun it was to drive. When I first got into EVs, my wife didn't understand my passion for them, and I took her on a test drive at Tesla, and they take you to the beginning of an on-ramp and you just floor it down the on-ramp, and she was laughing the whole way, and then she understood what was fun about EVs.
Yep. Okay, Christopher, we're gonna allow you to talk if you wanna unmute yourself and then ask your question.
Okay, hopefully am I unmuted now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Lisa, with your Kia, I'm a Kia fan. What percentage do you think of miles are electric versus what percentage of your miles do you think are gasoline? How often are you actually using the gasoline part of it versus just the electric?
Yeah, I was going to try to figure that out before. We're currently at 36,000 miles. And so 5 days a week before COVID, we were driving either 6 miles a day or 25, or probably 40 miles a day when we split the car. My husband worked in Egan. And so then it was 90%, or, almost all electric miles there. Whereas, and then we travel, like I said, so we were doing, visiting every Minnesota state park in 1 year. So that put a lot of miles on it really quick. And again, obviously we used a lot of fuel during that time, so.
If I can ask, what's your range for all electric, typically with the Kia?
It's 26 electric and then 46 MPG, and then we get just over 500 miles total. During the winter, we lose about 7% electric. It goes from 26 to 24. Hopefully I did my math correct there. So
you can drive 24 miles off of just the electric charge?
In the winter, and it's 26 in the summer or good weather. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, another question here then. Has anyone ever looked into solar charging? And what about the cost to install a solar charging system? And Dean, you can feel free to jump in here too.
We are not eligible. Our house isn't set up to be able to utilize solar just because of our shade trees. So we do have 100% wind source through Excel Energy.
I'm in the same situation. My house is completely covered with trees, so we use wind source.
Dean, do you know anything more? I know that there's blanking on I want to say it's like Arc Solar, or there's a company out there that is making solar arrays with a charging station underneath there that can be used in more remote locations, not necessarily for home charging, but I don't know the cost of those off the top of my head, but that wouldn't necessarily be for a homeowner either.
And there are a lot of really good programs for home solar in Minnesota too. So I would encourage you to visit some of the links that we had shared earlier too. So a lot of incentives.
Okay, another question. Let's see here. Question about what the price was for the Bolt.
Yeah, so I was leasing cars from, I took over someone's lease in 2015, and then I leased again in 2017, and my lease was coming up in April of 2019, and or April of this year, and the deals that Chevy had in January were too good to pass up. So instead of leasing again, I bought. So we got the premier level with like all the fun options and everything, which is like, I think it was like 45, and we ended up getting it for like 33 after taxes and everything. So it was a pretty good chunk off. And then I get the $1,800 next year off my taxes, so that'll be nice.
Yeah. Okay, so what are some useful tips then when shopping for an EV?
I would say start with the EV info list. Again, there's the upper Midwest version that has the vehicles that you can buy in the community or in your network in our state or region. And then for me personally, I knew I needed 5 seats when my car is full with my people in my world. And I needed it big enough to, you know, haul camping gear, and I needed a PHV because of the 1-car household, and I knew my price range. So I just went down the list and over, and, you know, I had 2 options, and the Volt with the V was too small for us. So we went with the other one. And then you can also utilize cars.com to see where the vehicles are too. So once you get your top couple, you can go to cars.com and see what dealerships are carrying them. And also the MN EV buyer's guide as well is a great.
I'd say one of the tips that I've seen people talking about a lot on various forums and stuff is a lot of dealers aren't very knowledgeable about EV cars, and some of them want to be and some of them don't want to be. So a lot of times they'll just buy whatever they're told to buy from the manufacturer, and sometimes that doesn't include the fast charging capability. So always look for the fast charging capability, because that's something you can't install after the fact.
Mm-hmm. And when in doubt, you probably do want the fast charging capabilities too, if you have a pure electric. So, and doing your research ahead of time. When I bought my first hybrid back in 2003, the dealership didn't know very much. I told them more than they knew. And when I bought my flex fuel Ford Ranger, again, same deal. And third time, again, with the Kia Niro, you want to do your research.
And Yuka points out that there's some videos on mnevowners.org. So that might be helpful to walk through people's experience there too. Michael, can you maybe lead us through explaining the difference between a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle and a hybrid, like a Prius, and then the battery electric vehicle and the differences there?
Yep. So the biggest difference between a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle is the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle has the option to be pure electric, whereas the hybrid can be pure electric at times, but it's not something you can choose whether it's electric or not. So that I think that's the main difference. Usually the batteries are a lot smaller too, and you can't get the kind of electric range that you can in other things. And I had a Prius for a long time, and there are a lot of times where I didn't want the engine on and it came on anyway. And then the battery electric I think it's preferred. That's what I like. Why wouldn't you go that? Like Lisa pointed out, there's a lot of times where you might need more space, or you might need more a range. So that's when you might go for a PHEV. That was one of the selling points for me for the Bolt, was I could get almost everywhere in Minnesota on one charge, and We recently took a trip down to Missouri and we just charged in Des Moines on the way. So.
Okay. Let's see. Any tips for doing ride and drive events for community members with this virtual format? Oh, I don't know, Lisa, do you want to take a crack at that? If you've done other virtual ride and drive event type things for folks?
Yeah, I mean, we really haven't done any virtual or real ride and drive since the pandemic started. We don't want to encourage people gathering pretty much under any circumstances per the American Lung Association policy. But if you are, on the last session I showed, we did a virtual ribbon cutting where we had less than 10 people present and we all had kept social distancing, and we did a ribbon cutting, and then all the audience was on the computer, so that it was virtual in that aspect. Watching webinars like this are helpful, and then if you go to your local dealership, they have the proper protocols in place if you do want to try a real vehicle. And again, keep in mind there's used and new EVs out there too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that person is asking about if they also wanted to do something like this, a virtual test drive, what tips do we have? I would just say it's helpful to film things in advance. We try to do things in live time, but then people's internet goes out, or then the phone as you're having someone film you. I mean, there's all kinds of complications and there's too much noise. So we like to edit things out in advance and make it to be a pleasant watching and listening experience for everybody. So I'd recommend that, doing it in advance.
And there's also a great list of, what you want to get. So, there's video clips of this, and this, and then talking points to cover, and just having your little sheet here to go down your checklist when you're making your virtual test drive. It's very helpful. So.
Okay, how about this question? Leasing or buying and the tech improvements that we're going to see in the next few years. I mean, what do you think is the better option to go with right now? Leasing or buying, and for how long? If you're leasing.
Yeah, I lean towards leasing, even though I personally bought a car. For the same reasons that Jerry said, the tech improvements are just getting better and better and better pretty quick. That being said, the reason why I bought is I was really frustrated with the lack of being able to drive with a lease, because you're stuck by miles. And with the range that the Bolt has, and being able to drive all over Minnesota and having the state park tags, I want to be able to just go wherever I want to go, whenever I want to go. So that's why I ended up buying. But to answer the question, most dealerships do have pretty decent lease terms. The reason why we had a BMW, it's not a car that we would be interested in, but the lease was low enough to where it was comparable to our car payment plus maintenance and gas. So that's why I took it over when I took it over from somebody else.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to how many miles do you drive. Again, we drive more than the average person, so we needed to buy. And then also, as Michael said, the tech upgrades are able to happen almost electronically, virtually, in a lot of the vehicles now. So you don't even have to bring them in to get the upgrades in some of the scenarios with the Teslas and the Bolts as well.
Let's talk about then the charging rates that you guys are on. So that's a common theme, that when you're buying an electric vehicle, there's with your utility, whether it's a co-op or muni or investor-owned one, should you be switching on to an EV charging rate? Do you have to sign up for it? What was the process like there? Was it confusing?
We did not sign up for anything since we have the PHEV and it's only 26 electric miles. It didn't make sense for us to add another meter to our household. And Excel does have some great programs, but again, you have to need the electric miles.
Michael, do you want to take a crack at that, or?
Sure. We didn't sign up for anything special. I kind of want to, but it was at the time when we bought our house, it was very confusing and everything was up in the air with Excel. So I think it's kind of settled down now. So it might be something I look into in the future, but right now we're just using regular electricity.
And just to add, there are really great programs out there now with Excel and Great River Energy and the co-ops and munis. If you go to the website mncharging.org, that will take you to a list of every single utility in the state of Minnesota, and they will, and then it drops you to the EV page for that program. So sometimes even if they don't have some better rate, they'll provide the charging station for you at low cost or no cost or install it. And every program is a little bit different. So, and keep checking back because things are getting a lot better, like Michael said.
I would say for probably most of those, the EV specific rates, you wouldn't have to do the work and go and sign up for it. You don't necessarily automatically get signed up for it, and it can save you money depending on, as Lisa and Michael were saying, kind of how far you're driving in a day and how much you're needing to charge at night. If you are needing to charge, 200 miles every night because you drove it to the other side of Minnesota and back, then yeah, it'd probably be in your interest to sign up for something like that and look into the programs. How about now some of the apps that you both use? Is there your favorite app that you have? I mean, Lisa, it looks like you, in the video you went with ChargePoint there, and Michael, what are you using? Just your phone, or can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mainly use PlugShare. Some people use a better route planner for like road trips or something. PlugShare is kind of like a go-to one. As far as like charging though, like you kind of have to have an app for all the chargers, that you might hit. So you have like Green Lots and ChargePoint and Electrify America, that kind of stuff. So you generally have a charging app for each one of those kind of chargers, and then I just use PlugShare to find the chargers. But most of my charging, probably 95% of my charging, is at home.
And I would add, PlugShare is awesome in Minnesota. It's a crowdsourced app, but in the rest of the U.S., it's not always such a robust EV owners group that's keeping that up to date. So I like to use Alternative Fuel Data Center, and that has all the charging locations on it, and it's for locations and route planning. And then again, just going back to the local apps, one example, I was in Northfield, Minnesota, and I looked to find where the charging station was, and it led me to, it said it was full, but there was a waiting list option. So then I clicked and I said I'd wait. And so I ran just around the block with the car, and by the time I got back, it pinged me and said, the charging site's open now, you can plug in. So the apps are really great, and it is worth having multiple apps on, or they just work through each other too. So
wow, that's really cool. So it's like real time that you were able to go and then plug in there, whereas gas car owners, they don't get to, you have to wait. If they're all taken, you just have to wait.
Yeah, and I mean, that was a unique situation, that it was just that lucky that the car left, so.
Very cool. Yeah. So what's maybe just in a final closing, I mean, what's the most common thing that people ask you? And then maybe what's the, I don't know, most interesting something that people ask you or stop you on the street about?
People ask for how we do the charging, like I showed in the slides in my video, and then when I'm with friends or family, they always ask for a ride, and they're always surprised. And I didn't do much inside the car on this video here, and it's so basic and standard compared to a gasoline vehicle. So it's yeah, it's just easy to drive and fun.
How about you, Michael? What's the most common thing that people are asking you, or what's the most interesting question you get?
I think probably the most common thing that people ask me is about the range, and I think that as it goes on is becoming less of an issue. I I think that's probably the most thing is that people, or I had somebody when I was working one event, volunteering at one event, somebody kind of challenged me on where the electricity comes from, and that, you know, that can be a point too, but that's one of the reasons why I do the wind source. And then just a random point that just occurred to me. One thing to consider with electric vehicles is that they're still vehicles. So anything that can go wrong on a car that isn't engine related can still go wrong on an electric car. I bought an extended warranty for my Bolt because I heard of a lot of Bolts having sway bar issues after the warranty is up. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that, yeah, the rest of the car is still a car.
Yeah, there's still, you gotta make sure your tires are full and put the windshield wiper fluid in and things like that. Okay. Well, I think we're gonna end it there today, but thank you so much to Michael and to Lisa and to Brian, who wasn't with us, for joining today. And thank you all for joining too.